Happy Monday, and welcome to another episode of Crypto with English. It seems like as we move forward in time, the metaverse, generally speaking, is becoming more and more of a part of our lives, and in fact, blending into really much of what we do, every single day. So, I'd like to warmly introduce today's guest, Alison Alexander. She's the co-founder and director of ethics and social policy at Metacampus, and today we're going to deep dive into this project, some of the nuances and, of course, the broader context as well. So, Alison, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's really lovely to be here with you.
Happy that you're here. And if you can kind of tell everybody, introduce yourself and introduce Metacampus. What is it? What does it seek to accomplish?
Okay, so two really great questions and great opportunities for me. So first one first. So hello, I am Alison Alexander. I am based in the UK. I am the co-founder alongside Perez with an EduPal of Metacampus. And I also have the role of Director of Ethics and Social Policy, which I'm sure we'll get to lots of conversation.
Alison, just to pump the brakes a little bit, for some reason, you're cutting out every second or third word now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's
okay. It looks okay at my end, but let me.
Sure. I'll give you 1 minute. It's no problem at all.
To shift onto a different.
Sure. Yeah, I just wanted to pause there before we really got into the meat and potatoes of this really interesting project. I want to make sure nobody misses anything.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do the technical thing of toggling into my phone and see if that brings me a better.
Sure. Sure, no problem. You give it a shot.
Bear with me. So just click here. So.
Okay, I think we may.
Okay, is that any better?
It's a little bit better. There's this. Yeah, it's a little bit better.
Okay, so let's see if we can work with that one. Yeah.
Actually, no, much better. So I can hear you.
All right. So
entirely now.
Okay, so as I said, Alison Alexander. I am a co-founder along with Pera and Edu of Metacampus, which we'll come on to. And as well as being that, I'm also the director of ethics and social policy, which we can talk lots about those issues. But I'm in the UK, and I have. For the last couple of years, I've been working with virtual reality and then shifted over to work with Pera and Edu on Metacampus. But prior to that, and a really valuable experience bringing into this is I have like 32 years of working in local government in the UK, which means really, I was the CEO of a council of a whole area. So we worked on education, housing, social care, building roads, building houses. So I was responsible for really building communities, which it feels really brilliant now. Like in everything around the metaverse, Web3, the decentralized internet is all about community. So there's a real kind of thread for me. When I first trained as a really young professional, I trained as a youth and community worker. It was for the people, by the people, and therefore that thread feels to me kind of really strong throughout everything I've done. So from there, after 30 years of the public sector, I thought I need a change. I need to do something different. And literally, somebody asked me to use all my skills as a leader to help them grow their VR-based company, which was about providing training to professionals as to how do you walk alongside somebody? How do you put yourself in someone's footsteps and then really understand them with the pure concept of how do you change behavior and you change that by affecting someone's thinking and their feeling, and then you get a behavior change. So I used all of those skills to use that and bring the virtual reality to the police in England, health system, education, social care. And then Pera asked me to join him on a venture to rebalance the world and bring much more equity into the world. And he introduced me into the decentralized internet, Web3. And I was hooked from the first time I read that concept. And for me, from then on, so in January, I moved into working with Pera and Edu in driving this, and the whole team at Metacampus, and really driving it forward. So that's me. That's who I am.
Great. And yes, please.
So then you asked about Metacampus. So I was going to jump onto Metacampus. So at Metacampus, we are.
Alison, for some reason, I am losing you again.
Oh, this is very frustrating. It's getting very.
Yeah, I know. It didn't pop up earlier for some reason.
Is it back on, or is it still?
It's like every second or third word. I'm kind of missing and getting kind of the staticky sound back.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to think of how else I can address that. It looks all good at my end. You see,
now you're sounding clear for some reason.
So I should not move. I should not touch anything.
Oh, well, of course, I'd like you to be comfortable, but yeah, for some reason now it's sounding much clearer. So
okay. So can you hear me now? Am I with you?
I can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So let's try this. So Metacampus. At Metacampus, we have brought together a group of people who are all passionate about changing the society, really seeking to rebalance and actually to develop products that will allow us to help professionals move into the Web3 ecosystem, to work in that ecosystem, and to continue growing their knowledge as they move along with the exponential world. We want it to be much more accessible and inclusive. So Metacampus is we have a company and we have different strands of what we do. And one strand of our work is about education. But it's not just education in the normal lecture sense. It is about how do we bring education that helps people grow their understanding, their technical skills, but also immerses themselves in the culture of Web3. We bring those three elements together, and that we've also brought together the concept of a gamified learning, because actually people learn really well when they do. And also we're working with people to bring challenges into that. So people who come on our program get to experience experiential. They go through a simulation where they deliver challenges that are happening in Web3 at the moment. So they can build their own credentials as they move in to work in the Web3 world.
Wow, it's very cool, to say the least. When it comes to using the metaverse to, I guess you can say otherwise better improve society, integrating people, and I guess you can say scaling and enhancing job skills and other practical skills. What's the first step in that process? It always seems like, I think, and I think we still often see this nowadays, there is still a little bit of a hesitation for a lot of people when it comes to just Web3, generally speaking. So once you start throwing in blockchain and NFT and metaverse, some people kind of their guard comes up at times, whether it's here in the US or elsewhere.
Oh, across the globe, I would say. And I was listening, and I have been listening and talking with colleagues, and literally the amount of people who say to me, what is Web3? And they immediately tell me all the things wrong with it. So they not only don't know about it, but they definitely know all the things that are wrong with it before they've even tried it. Yeah. And I think that is the really important thing. It's the I mean, we define it and talk about it as a revolutionary, decentralized internet, aka Web3. Yeah, and it's all about a whole cultural shift. So when people are going to really come into it, you have to help people understand that it isn't the same old way. So I heard one of your interviews the other day say about they'd lost their wallet. And they'd given up having a wallet. Yeah, Dr. Jane.
Sure.
Yeah, she was talking about that. And actually, that's a really fearful thing for certain people. Yeah, how do you do that? So the whole concept is, yes, as you say, how do you bring people in? You've got to firstly induct people into the whole ecosystem, all parts of it. But that needs to be, that doesn't mean they have to be a technician in crypto or a technician in wallets or a technician as a coder. What we need people to do is to understand the breadth of the ecosystem. So we need to give them that, and then we need to give them the tools. So some of the tools that we're talking about is we are talking about everybody will have to have a wallet, several wallets probably, and they need to have a hot and a cold wallet. Yeah, that means one that's plugged into your internet all the time and one that you plug in every now and again. But people need to do that. People will also need to be able to buy crypto. We need to give them the tool to do that. And that's a really important thing to people, to build confidence. Because when you have got the confidence to buy crypto, then to actually have it in your wallet, then to send it to somebody so you can really achieve what it's about. Transaction for person to person, that we transact. I can send you some money. Or, I mean, the first time I sent somebody one of my NFTs, I was just like, oh my God, where has it gone? Or is it going to land there? And it's really, we need to give people the skills, and we need to give, I'm going to say, the regular people, not like the you and me who are getting more and more into this, but people who don't understand it. And that's what we're about. How do you take people who are already professionals, accountants, lawyers, marketers, teachers, lecturers, and how do we say you could have a career in Web3, but to do that, you have to understand and have an ability to use the tools and to actually understand the culture and to really immerse yourself in the culture. And the culture is the important thing about the decentralized internet.
Very well said. And I was wondering if you could shed some light on, I guess you can say, metaverse and metaverse training, or you could say metaverse interaction with individuals or parts of society looking to learn new job skills. Are there numbers out there as far as, like, let's say, how much time and money that would save? As far as, those processes versus, let's say, you just hand somebody a textbook, or you provide them kind of just a link to a very generic, onboarding type of process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it is a really good question about the time saved. And I think that's the important thing. I use my example, I spent months looking at loads of different documents, loads of different articles and loads of different podcasts, and looking at lots of different YouTubes to try to understand it. And to be honest, I lost days. I lost thousands of hours of my life, really, because sometimes I'd go down a rabbit hole and I'd be like, oh my God, this is really, really interesting. And it is interesting, but I didn't need to know it. Yeah. There's something about helping people understand what they need to know. Do I need to know how many coins there are and what all the coins are, or what all the tokens are? Do I need to know that to operate? To build in the metaverse, do I need to know that? To be a teacher in the metaverse? To be a creator in the metaverse. And so for me, that's the important thing. So I believe that you can save people thousands of hours. And what we say is that we've taken 1,000 hours of learning and compressed, or 1,000 days, and put it into 100. And therefore we can allow people to go from zero, I don't know anything, to absolutely being comfortable conversing with anybody about the metaverse. And obviously your knowledge grows every day after that, but it gets people to the position that they can comfortably secure employment in the metaverse. Right.
And it seems like kind of a recurring theme in human history, but it seems like whether it's, individuals or systems, it seems like people are more comfortable with essentially what they're already familiar with versus what's already better or more efficient. So let's say in the UK, is there like a fair amount of, let's say you can call it, bureaucratic either pushback or resistance to, let's say, entertaining? Listen, why don't we move some of these agencies and these processes into some sort of metaverse ecosystem? Are many things kind of saddled and, kind of burdened with like legacy systems? And, you could even say many of those interests relating to such.
Yeah, and I am smiling because it just is such a bugbear of mine that I just want the public sector and everybody to grasp the kind of Web3, like to really say, absolutely, come through my door. But what I sense is it's those people who are working in the private sector will invest time and money into do that research. And then what happens is in the public sector, and I speak of somebody who got very agitated sometimes from people in the private sector who came and told me how to do it differently. Actually, they are 10 steps ahead, even 100 steps ahead, because they've learned to invest and explore the new. Where actually, if you think, and you've had many people on your show talk about different things, but you talk about healthcare, you talk about how you could really change it. You could share information in the health system and local government. They want to share information so the same people know it. Interoperability, we call it. It's like obviously what we want with the metaverse, interoperability, which is really important. But actually, if you bought that, if you use the blockchain to give me ownership of my data, so then I can share it with you and with you, the people I want, we get around that data sharing, and actually you resolve so many issues and you release up so much resource. If you used the blockchain for voting, imagine bringing voting to the blockchain,
Yeah.
And so I used to be a returning officer. So that means somebody who calls the count and all of that in the UK.
Oh, wow.
And I did it once for one of our prime ministers because of where I worked. And actually, the amount of money that is spent in that. Now, if you took the vote into the blockchain, imagine. So literally, that's why when we say we've got to dip everybody into this knowledge, it is everybody. Anybody who works anywhere needs to understand what this new world is. And the new world is a decentralized internet which says we could do everything fundamentally differently for the benefit of society.
Very well said. And, with your project, I wonder if you could talk about some of the underlying, technology. What are you using as far as like a blockchain or like a layer 1 or a layer 2? What are some of the objectives as far as using accessories like headsets and haptics and all those type of things?
Yeah, so we will be using like a layer 2, a polygon, and actually in terms of our system will allow people to come on by their computer. Because the minute you actually say the only way to get into it is through headsets, I remember when I introduced virtual reality and everyone had to have headsets, it stops the masses because they're not comfortable with that yet. So what we're doing is we're bringing our education is through a platform. It will be a gamified platform, and actually people will be able to, as they do it more, they can immerse themselves in different ways. But what's important is that people can access the whole thing on their computer and on their phone, because we want more people to get into the world.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talk about like the metaverses, if you ask somebody to look at the metaverse now, and I've given many people like Decentraland, Solid Space, go check it out, go have a look. And they kind of try to go into it. But if I said, here's a headset, you've got to do it, they wouldn't go near it. So we're thinking of all those people who need to be helped to transition. And the first transition is you get people to understand it, to look at it, and to feel comfortable walking around in it and seeing themselves as a digital twin, having themselves there. That's what you need people to see.
Well, I think it's extremely promising that something like this can scale systems and training for the average person. In fact, it almost reminds me of that scene from The Matrix. I think that was when Neo, first entered it, and he's essentially being mentored and tutored by Morpheus, and he was literally uploading martial arts styles, into his skill set, into his brain. So it was like kung fu, karate, boxing, kickboxing, and then he's like, I know kung fu. He has that famous line afterwards, and I know it's a little bit of a hyperbole, a little bit silly, but it seems like it's kind of the same idea there, so to say.
Yes, it will be. We launch in October, and it will be funny when you talk about kung fu and martial arts, and having a teacher and having a student and how they learn together. So there's lots of that. It's having somebody to take you along your journey. Yeah. So we have created that so that we will allow people to be supported in their learning journey.
Right. And I would imagine too, this is probably either intentional or unintentional, but I would imagine that a lot of programs that are operating on the metaverse and they're using something like an Oculus or an HTC, to allow their users to, learn and participate in these various, you could say upskilling kind of experiences. I would imagine that things like glitches and errors and deficiencies are also going to be much more noticeable. I think it's one thing if you're looking at this on your desktop or your cell phone, but I think if you're like locked in with the headset, essentially completely immersed in every conceivable way, as of 2022, those little errors are not going to be so little, for as far as the user experience, so to say. If there's a microsecond delay in something that shouldn't have that kind of delay, if maybe some of the graphics are off or the speed is off or whatever, I would imagine companies are going to have to really step up their game.
Yeah, and they are the things that kind of put people off. And I say that I'm talking about people who we generally are talking about people who are very professional in their field, but they've never touched this. And actually, you've got to enable them to actually get used to it. And later, they'll be like with their headsets on, walking around, all of that. And by then, actually, the whole world needs to keep evolving on this, doesn't it? When we talk about that actual at the speed of technology, that is something that everyone will be always burdened with, as we grow and more usage is taking place in that. But it is about how do you not scare people off, and how do you enable people to understand? So for me, the reason this is really important is because you will only get inclusion within the metaverse if you find ways to bring everybody in. And if the only way that people can come in is that they have to be able to have a headset, they have to feel comfortable with that, I think what happens is you get a limited group of people in the metaverse. And then you have a limited number of people who are deciding what the metaverse will look like. It's that saying, if you don't have a diversity of people in the room, you won't create a diverse environment, because you only will develop it for what you want. However much you try to think about other people, you actually need to have everyone in the room. So our program is designed to take everybody into the room and to get them there from their starting point. And then once they're in the room, then they can go wherever they want in that way. But our ambition is that we make it huge, very accessible, very inclusive, and that we enable everybody to take on the culture, which is the most important thing. We are here at a kind of precipice of we've got an opportunity to fundamentally move from this centralized approach to a decentralized world, and to really empower people in that. And that's what this is about.
Right. And if you can talk about gamification, this seems to be almost novel, and it's probably not entirely though, but I think it's novel in the way we're seeing it play out in technology nowadays. What is the strategic advantage to having, let's say, a gamified training or a gamified certification process, regardless of, let's say, whichever function or department you work in government? How does that augment and scale kind of just the overall improvement of things?
Yeah, well, if you are if you and I were sitting here and I was talking to you for hours and hours, you would kind of get bored with that and soon switch off, yeah? But actually, if we were in a game in here and we were hopping around and we were like going over to challenges and we were doing a challenge together, which was all about, so if, for instance, you're learning the lingo or you're going over to another place and you're setting up a wallet, how much, like, as human beings, learning styles are very much around that. Some people are thinkers, some people are reflectors, and some people are doers. And we need in all learning to comprise of those three elements so that we can really cater for everyone. And what we believe is that when you're doing, especially if you hear the theory of setting up a wallet and going to buy an NFT and going to join a Discord and going to join a DAO, and that you're going to have the voting rights of a DAO. If you read all of that, you can take it in, but you need to be in it, don't you? So the reason we've bought that element is because we want people to get into it straight away. So when we say the metaverse is you walk into a different environment. You have an avatar. You immediately are starting to look around you, seeing the world differently. So we are taking the same. We are bringing people in, giving them that avatar and allowing them to then walk in and then take that learning journey at their pace. And it sometimes it could be a group of people who are doing it at one pace, or it could be somebody who says, I need to keep doing this for a while so that I really feel comfortable.
Right. And I think it's great that you mentioned, learning styles, because, I think everybody has their own unique system, process, or, affinity towards, certain things as well. And I think especially since the lockdowns and going forward, I think it's very promising to see that. I think many people, in fact, I think much of society is actually quite self-motivated. You don't necessarily need to have, let's say, a micromanager, breathing down your neck or something like that. So, and I think one of the things that seems to be apparent is that many of these job functions can be done anywhere. And, I think if you throw a metaverse ecosystem into that, well, then any of these job functions can be done anywhere and perhaps much better and much faster.
And that's why we say that actually this is a real chance to really change the dynamics. Actually, it's no longer saying, okay, I've got to live in London to do this job, or I've got to be able to commute to London, actually, or I've got to be in America. This is saying I can live in Uganda and I can do this job, and I could come at it from a whole different approach. As we heard in Dubai, their whole adoption of the metaverse and their strategy for that, actually, they might live there and they could still do the same job. Actually, what I believe can start to happen in the metaverse is we start to say, what is the job that needs to be done? What is the skills we need for that job? And therefore, we appoint people based on that, them having the skills. Because for us, actually, I feel that there is often unconscious bias when we are recruiting people into some of these jobs. And actually, the world has been seeking to eliminate unconscious bias for a long time. So if you think about this, now we do all of our job interviews in the metaverse. You have an avatar in front of you. For me, our whole approach is we are passionate about how do we eliminate it. So we therefore, you actually give people their credentials. They can put all their credentials on the blockchain. They can decide which parts of it you can see. It doesn't mean that you know my gender or my ethnicity. And actually, but what you do see is all my qualifications, my abilities to do the job. And then if we do meet, we could meet as avatars. And then actually you still might not know. I mean, even with some people, you might say, well, I can tell the voice, but actually you can still use lots of technology. This is, again, a real chance to eliminate bias. And again, when you do that, you start to rebalance, because it actually doesn't matter where you got your education. And when I say education, I mean that in the roundest sense. It's about where you got your skills. This isn't about which university you went to, because actually employers in the Web3 aren't looking for a list of degrees. They're looking for evidence that you've engaged in Web3 and that you have a reputation and that you're connecting with people, you understand community, you understand all of the tools. And actually, young people, Gen Zs are saying, I'm no longer going to spend 4 years getting a degree with $100,000 or pounds worth of debt, when actually I don't need that to do the job.
Right. And it's a good point that you mentioned as far as increasing diversity, especially in this new Web3 era. And I think this is something I think both the UK and the US have in common. But I think there's been critiques, respectively, between the two countries in various industries of kind of like good old boy type cultures being formed, and kind of like these these echo chambers, and friends hiring friends, and kind of deeply ingrained, like you could say, cultures of nepotism. And unfortunately, the nepotism eventually ends up creating a need for innovation, because shit hits the fan usually, and then there's problems, and you need really outsiders to come in and fix things. Like for example, like I heard one of my buddies based out of London, he's telling me that there's a critique sometimes with people in various positions of government. They come from the same colleges, and actually we hear that here in the United States too. So I think in the UK it's like Eton and Gordonstown, and then it's like Oxford. Like it's almost like a mill, and in the US it's like it's usually like Harvard and Yale, and maybe one other school that tends to be where all the Supreme Court justices come from, and where all the senators come from, and things like that. So it seems to me maybe a lot of these problems come from the fact that, whether it's a conscious or unconscious bias, but people just kind of keep, either selecting or empowering just people who are just exactly like them. And then what happens is you don't see where the punches are coming.
That's it.
You're hiring your friends at the end of the day.
Yeah. Or either friends or yourself. You recruit often who you are, so you went to this university, so even if you don't know the person who went to that university 4 years later, they'll say to you, I went there. You'll associate everything you did with that university and go, okay, I know the kind of person they're going to be. They're the kind of person I want on my team, when actually they're the person you least want on your team, because you need that diversity, not because they're not good. They're probably really good, but you need a diversity. And what's happening, this is what we've now got the opportunity. If you think about it, you've got all the creators who are coming into the world of Web3, creators who were creative before, but the NFT world has given them an opportunity to walk in. And actually, they've started to form connections and communities across the globe. Twitter Spaces, people are now connected in ways they would never have been connected before. People are therefore recruiting people through those spaces. Discord channels, the ones that now start to say, tell me what you need, or ask me a question, or ask me to loan you something. They're really working hard at uniting people across the globe. And that is the most important thing. This is now our time to change how we do things.
Yeah, why not make it fun too? I mean, if you can gamify even the hiring and the interviewing process, like with an avatar and essentially with a video game character in like a little like sandbox type of gaming ecosystem, go into location and individual people to, expedite these processes. I think we'd all be surprised how much more relaxing and actually educational that's going to make all of our days. As we do our work.
We have our game, you then do that and say, come meet your potential employer in our game. Have that conversation. Let them see you doing something, and actually how you were experienced. The first time we ever created a virtual reality room was for that very reason that you just said. How to put two people together, they could put on their avatar, and they didn't have to look the person in the eye when they kind of talked to them and told them some very kind of sensitive stuff. And then they could jump out and then meet them and then still look at them face to face. So, but sometimes people who are, whether it's an introvert or people aren't as confident or they haven't had as many opportunities, they might just not put themselves forward if they have to go somewhere and meet somebody. But you put them in a game, or you put them in that metaverse, and hey, they would just rock it. And that's again why we think this is the time when you can really change the economics of the world. The decentralized internet is all about changing our economics, how we are socially constructed and environmentally constructed. And it's such an amazing opportunity.
Right. And, and kind of adding to that as well, and I think this goes to both either the employer or the, interviewee, so to say, it's very easy to put on, you could say, a very good packaging during the interview process, either as the employer or as the interviewee, so to say. It is very easy to almost kind of gaslight. I don't mean to sound cynical as I say, but it's almost easy to kind of either white knuckle it or like gaslight your way kind of, through the process. And, things like having a good conversation and whatnot, those things, on one hand, it's good for, you could say, building bridges, but on the other hand, it could also be distracting, to other things in the bigger picture. So let's say if you had a scenario where it is literally just this metaverse gaming environment and you essentially have to attack the objectives or the questions as is, that might just be the rawest, almost purest way to actually, navigate that process, so to say.
It really gives everybody a fair opportunity, doesn't it? We talk about having that, but actually when you walk into a room and everyone on that panel looks like you, you will feel more confident. If you walk in that room or that you have a disability and you're not able in that way to, but you don't see anybody that looks like you in that room, you are already having to get over a hurdle. So if you take them out of there and say, these are the 5 tasks, we've got them up here, we now want to see you do them. Like if you look for any job in Web3 at the moment, people don't want your CV. CV is old hat nowadays, from my style. I have this long CV and I could send you it, but nobody wants that anymore. If you literally, I looked and I was playing at it, and actually what people want to know is, what experience do I have at doing the task that they want doing? What is my Twitter handle? What is whilst LinkedIn is a Web 2, it is trying to draw itself, but they want to look at that. They're then looking at me. They're then looking at my interaction. And that's how they then start to make the judgment of, am I delivering what I say I really can do, that I might just present in an interview that you said that I don't actually have an evidence of. I might just say the words that you want to hear.
Sure. And this might just be a byproduct of human nature, but I think I think all of us, to an extent, more or less need to be insulated, if not kind of protected from our own biases at times too, because as we go about our day, we don't notice it. I think a lot of these things are not intentional, so to say, but like you said, you walk into a room and let's say everybody looks and speaks like you, automatically you're going to feel more comfortable, for better or for worse. I mean, these people might just be, pardon my French, pieces of shit. But like, you might miss that because, oh, wow, they're from the same town as me. They speak just like me. They look just like me. So, you kind of miss maybe some of those little, extra details.
Yeah. And that is why we do have that real imbalance, don't we? Because if you think, if I as a woman, I've walked into many rooms and in a sense, as a senior leader, as a CEO of a council, I can sometimes think, oh yeah, we've done this equalities, we've got it balanced because I'm there, sitting there. But then I walk into a room and all the time, the politicians are men.
Sure,
and then you're having that. So I'm having to first convince them that I can do that. So you're immediately one hurdle. And then again, if I was a woman of color, I would have to do the same. If I then have disabilities, I'm also then having to do that. And actually you remove all of that. So as you said, we don't go through life consciously being biased. We actually inherit a lot of things. We have a lot of junk in our head that we didn't know was there until it actually comes out. And actually, we need to be protected, as you said. We need to be able to make the best decisions. And therefore, the more we can remove a lot of that from our view, the more we're likely to make a better decision.
Right. And, like hypothetically, if your interview process was really, you had to create and customize an avatar, and that avatar could really only be like 1 or 2 types of space aliens, so to say. And you can either choose like a purple skin, almost like almost like a mod, so to say, but you could either use like a purple or green skin. And that is how you're going to have to go about your onboarding and interviewing. I bet you that's going to change a lot of things.
It would change a lot of the outcomes.
So, let's say no names or, no age, no gender. You just see the certifications, you just see the skill sets, you just see the experience, that would, very much, I think that's going to save a lot of headaches in the future.
That's what we're about. That is what, you go right back to the beginning and you said to me, what is Metacampus about? And that is what we're about. We want to make sure that change is brought in and that we equip people with the ability to do that. The metaverse is there to do that, but actually what we're doing is making sure that we can bring as many people in so that then there are so many people to choose from, and then we get the right people doing the jobs that we need to do.
Very well said. And a final question. So what does the Metacampus have in store for the remainder of the year? It sounds like a lot of exciting things going on.
So we do. So we're working quite a lot at the moment with some companies who want us to help us. I call it in a very English way, sheep dipping their staff in the Web3. Really English.
No, I've heard that term before. So yeah, I like it. No worries. Please continue.
So we're working with some universities and some companies that have asked us to do that from across the globe. And so that's very dedicated courses, but we've then got the launch of our course, our Express program in October, where that means that individuals will be able to register on that, or companies can buy whole swathes of course spaces on that. And that will be that time where we take people through a kind of like a program that takes them from zero into the employment. Then at the end of the year, we then start to launch our full program, which is what we say 100 hours of learning, which is a much more intense. At the same time, we are establishing our own investment DAO. And our investment DAO is very much about how those people who come through might be some people who want to be the founders of the future. And therefore, everybody who comes through our program gets access as an alumni into our investment DAO. But some of them might want to put forward ideas as to actually a business. And then we will match them up with VCs so that then they can pitch their proposals, and therefore we can hopefully not only grow the community into the Web3, we can also grow the next iterations of startups.
That's awesome. I am very, very excited for this. I can only imagine if, let's say, this now becomes a bigger part of society. Could you imagine how much that would scale just learning, elementary school learning? I guess here in the U.S. at K through 12 learning. Maybe children who otherwise struggled, they may be able to find an edge in this.
I know, and I know we're coming to the end, but that is so important that actually everywhere we need to be rechanging education. This is where we need governments to be listening. We need educationalists to be sitting at home over the summer holidays, and we're thinking about how can we bring blockchain, the metaverse, crypto into our teaching of every subject. We need to be moving forward to be teaching about the future world that our children are going to be walking into. And we can teach them about history, that's important, but let's teach them history using the tools of the future. Let's look at history through the metaverse. Let's enter those sand dunes, those like the institutes, the castles, the cathedrals in the metaverse. Let's do teaching using those tools so that then those people who are going to be the workforce of the future, they're not learning in their bedrooms on games and how their own exploration. They're learning it in the classroom, and actually the classroom experience is equipping them to transition into the Web3, and that the culture, they are taught the culture. That's the most important bit. We have to dip everyone into We have a new culture of decentralization, and we want this to be for the people, by the people. So important.
Yeah, I have to say my excitement's definitely elevated. Like imagine learning like the Middle Ages, in the metaverse, with like an Oculus or something like that, interacting, go to the blacksmith, put on your armor. Like, kids are really gonna love that. Yeah.
But we've got to get educationalists to get over, because if you think, I'm older, and therefore if somebody maybe had brought it to me years ago, I'd go, what is all of this? But we need everybody to go, okay, it's okay that I don't know it. It's okay that I need to learn it. And therefore, I'm actually going to use the children in my classroom to help me learn about it, because they will be really enthusiastic. And if you think of all those children and young people who don't want to be, or they're just not theoretical, they actually want to be doers.
Right.
Imagine bringing that into education and educating them through the metaverse. How many kids would complete school in a positive way, as opposed to coming out of it and desperate to stop learning because their whole experience was negative? We would change that whole dynamic.
Yeah, and praise to all the great and amazing teachers that are out there, really encouraging and really, sacrificing, their time and energy, to help people through. But, perhaps a metaverse type of educational system also insulate kids from the bad teachers. I mean, listen, there's plenty of them out there. You hear about them sometimes in the news, unfortunately. But but even studies of different school districts and whatnot. Some have greater, you could say, numbers of apathy among their staff, and some districts have very passionate and engaged, staff and teachers. And I think unfortunately, if you're a child, you can't really choose much of the time, who your teacher's going to be at the end of the day. It's kind of a roll of the dice, and some people have good luck, and some people not so much. So,
and if you think that determines your future, doesn't it? Did your dice get thrown right? That the person you have in your classroom is inspiring you to be a learner? Because what we need is everyone to be inspired to be a learner. And to learn in the way that they want to, because then we get everybody constantly in the conversation. But you're right. In every profession, there are fantastic and there are mediocre and there are some not okay. And we need to help it so that we turn that around, so that everybody gets that inspirational education, so that they want to go on and be those teachers of the future. But in the metaverse, this is a real once in a lifetime opportunity. And Metacampus are so passionate about every partnership we're building, and we're building partnerships across the globe. We're in Dubai, we're in America, we're in Europe, and we're really looking at how can we touch all sides? How can we constantly evolve as well from what we hear in our conversations and our partners? And we are both building partnerships where we will work with people and we bring their challenges into our learning, but we also are partnering with people and they're becoming our educators and our contributors, those who are the experts. We're not creating more experts. There are experts out there, and we're drawing them in through collaborations with us to be our contributors and educators on our program.
Wow, that is wonderfully put, and I am very, very excited for this project. And especially Alison, I have to say your energy and your passion is very infectious. So I am very excited, learning about all this and seeing what Metacampus has in store for the rest of the year. So I have to say, Alison, it was an absolute pleasure having you come onto the show today. And thank you very much for offering your time to come on and discuss and expand upon, what you and your team are working on. These are the type of ideas and these are the type of teams that really make genuine, difference, towards the future. And you can't ever underestimate small, consistent efforts, so to say, whether it's with startups or larger companies. These things do add up and they become very tangible a lot faster than you think.
And I would like to, because it is really important, as you said, to give a shout out to those teams. Yeah, I'm here, I'm talking to you. People will know me, people will know Pera and Edu. We have such a fab team like Sarah, Dana, Iraj, Javier, David, Chris, Vilma, everybody. Yeah, and everyone, if I haven't mentioned you, Gilmo, they're all there. Mark, Pera, it's so important. They're the ones that are doing the day and day, building the platform.
Right.
They are building the challenges. They are doing that to make sure that we have this that is going to help change radically how we educate people and bring people into the metaverse. Thank you for letting me say that.
No problem. Beautifully put. So again, Alison, thank you so much for coming on. I'm looking forward to doing another episode with you in the near future, and perhaps we can pick up from this conversation and kind of deep dive a little bit more into some of these kind of nuanced things, and of course to see where Metacampus is at and what you all are up to and what you all have accomplished thus far.
Thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
You as
Thank
well.
you.
Take
Okay.
care.
Bye.
Bye.